Hey guys, welcome to Vetted. This is Patrick. We got Sebastian and Amy here, the Vetted crew, your UFO sleuths. We are ready to jump into this week's podcast. We've got some very, very interesting stories. Last week we spoke about Sean Kirkpatrick potentially, wasn't confirmed yet, potentially being on his way out of ARRO, the Pentagon's UFO office. It's official. He's out. So we're going to be digging into that political article. And they've also already appointed the new director of ARRO. So we're going to be taking a look at who that is and what to expect from new leadership. And also, David Grusch has a brand new interview out. He did on a smaller Italian YouTube channel. Quite interesting. This is bearded David Grusch that we haven't seen before. So he says some very interesting things. So we're going to take a small little snippet clip, look at a clip of that interview. It's quite fascinating, to say the least. And then also, there was a UFO sighting mentioned for the first time in the hearings in July by Ryan Graves. And it's called it was like, I don't know, they're calling it the Red Square UFO sighting. So we're going to kind of take a little clip of a look at a clip of that sighting, because that person went on the record for the first time ever and came public and went on Ryan Graves's podcast, Merged. So very interesting, that particular sighting. And then also, Mexico had another hearing for the Peruvian mummified alien bodies, I guess we're calling them. So they might just not be cake after all. And yeah, it's quite interesting. I guess the more research they've done on it, what's going to happen with that. So we'll take a closer look at that as well. All right, how y'all doing, Amy?
Good,
Sebastian?
good.
Really good, thank you.
Good. How are you?
Yeah, great. Excited to jump into this UFO news. It was a busy week last week.
Yeah, you also know that it was Patrick's birthday last week, right? So
yes, that is true.
Say hello, congratulations in the comments to him.
Yes. I already got a few. It was quite nice. One guy was hilarious. He wrote this long comment about how ridiculous I was and the stuff I was saying and everything, and then, oh, by the way, happy belated birthday, Patrick. So shout out to Peter. Thanks, Peter.
Hey, Peter.
Yeah, it was quite funny, to be honest with you. You don't know what you're talking about, man. This is crazy. You're crazy. Oh, by the way, happy birthday. Thank you. Yes. That was funny. So yes, thank you guys so much for all the birthday wishes. And yeah, feel free to leave me more. I will take them. All right. Yeah. Hey, listen, last week we spoke about Sean Kirkpatrick, right? Potentially being out. It wasn't confirmed yet. Again, he's the director of ARRO, the All Domain Anomalous Resolution Office. Okay, so the Pentagon's UFO office, right? Investigating UFOs. He's been in the position a little over a year, and he's out. It is official. So I'm going to share my screen here, y'all, so we can take a look at this political article, because what we're going to focus on is some comments he made about David Grusch. And again, I'll put links to all the articles and everything we look at, so you can read the full article and all of that. All right, let's see here. Sure. Yes. Oh, that's our new website. We'll be talking about that soon. Yeah. Right here. The title is actually quite funny. Are aliens real? We asked the Pentagon's outgoing UFO chief. Quote, that is a great question. I love that question. Sean Kirkpatrick said, you love, are aliens real? That's a good question. But I don't mean, whatever. Okay. Yes, so he's out after 18 months, it says, but I'm going to kind of scroll down here to this part where he talks about David Grusch. And if y'all see something you think is interesting. So basically he gets asked, the last year has been a roller coaster for ARRO. Has any of the controversy over the whistleblower testimony, the Chinese spy balloon, the website delay contributed to your decision to leave? And then he goes into detail about some of these challenges. But what I found interesting was what he said about David Grusch. So just because there's some back and forth between them, I made a lot of videos on the Vetted channel here of where he has stated in the past, very recently, that basically he has tried to reach out to David Grusch numerous times, ARRO has, and that David Grusch has declined to come in. Even though David Grusch has said in interviews, no, they've never reached out to me.
Yeah.
I've gotten no phone calls, no emails. And then you've got Sean Kirkpatrick saying, no, we've reached out lots of times. You've declined to come in. So everyone was like, well, who's telling the truth? Who's lying? Right. So that's kind of where it was at. And then he goes on to say this: the whistleblowers are an interesting bit. This is Sean Kirkpatrick, by the way. We've had greater than 30 people now come in to talk to us. We have investigated every single one of them, every single story, every lead that provided any substantive evidence for us to go after. David Grusch is a unique instance in that he has refused to come and share any of that information. Again, I'll interrupt here. David Grusch is denying that. He is saying, nope, I have received nothing. Now, he was specific with his words. He said, I've received nothing by phone or email. So I don't know if that's a way of him getting around it, but anyway, David Grusch is denying this. So anyway, Sean Kirkpatrick goes on to say, we still can't get him to come in. I've got 5 different people who have gone to talk to him to get him to come in. And the answers have always been everything from we're not cleared to it would jeopardize his whistleblower protections to why can't we just go get the information that he shared from the IG, the Inspector General? It's every excuse that I have heard why not to come in. And that's been a challenge because now here we are. We're about to put out volume 1 of the historical review, which I believe captures most of the people that he's spoken with. But I can't say that 100% because I can't hear what he thinks he has. If he has evidence, I need to know what that is. So that's very interesting. A completely different story from what David Grusch is telling. I mean, it couldn't be more different. So I don't know. That's very interesting. I don't know. What do y'all think? Does that seem a little shady? Do you see? I don't know. David Grusch is saying, I haven't received anything. But this seems like a lot to lie about, doesn't it? Like on Sean Kirkpatrick's part. Yeah, it's so specific.
Yeah, and he's got real clear detail on, the excuses, to quote Sean himself, that David Grusch has used, which feels like you've got to be a pretty good liar to kind of come up with them in a media interview off the top of your head, haven't you?
Good point. Yeah, 100% agree with that. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. He's got the excuses that was told to him.
Yeah.
Right. You're right. And he's saying, I've got 5 different people who have gone to talk to him. So
yeah,
in person, right? They've gone to talk to him. That's not saying a phone call or an email.
Yeah.
So
yeah. But there's no way he could have missed that, someone in front of him.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds crazy. There's something David Grusch isn't saying, in my opinion. There's something he's not saying, or I don't know.
Always, it's difficult when it's like this because you never get the 2 stories side by side. In some ways, David Grusch should have had a right to respond here, shouldn't he? And then we could have seen what his response was to these allegations. They're not necessarily allegations, but yeah, I agree. Someone is hiding something, and it feels to me like it's probably David.
Yeah, it seems so weird.
I'm not hiding something. Maybe that's extreme, but
no. But I know what you mean. There's something not being made public, right? Yeah, something's not add up, and there's something he's not saying publicly for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Now, granted, ARRO has, depending on who you talk to, ARRO has a reputation of not being trusted, right? And David, there have been theories in the UFO world that's why David Grusch won't go talk to AARO, because he just doesn't trust him. Right.
Yeah.
And that was the whole article we read last week.
Yeah.
That part of the reason that Sean Kirkpatrick was leaving was that the office isn't trusted and that he can't really do his work because people are afraid to go talk to him. And I have seen interviews with people that have gone to talk to Sean Kirkpatrick at AARO, and then they go on a podcast or something and tell their story of, talking to AARO. And I haven't seen one positive story. I haven't seen one person that's gone, I had a great interaction with AARO and told them my story, and they, whatever. Everyone's been like, I don't know what they're doing. So there's something there too. I don't know. Just seems, if David Grusch is the guy that supposedly has the smoking gun, essentially, right, to this phenomenon, and he's not going to see the office that investigates this.
Yeah.
I mean, why is this meeting not happening? There's something.
I think
fishy.
what it seems most likely to me is in a way that both are right? Both are saying the truth, or their version of the truth anyway. But I think, for example, what could be an issue here is that AARO set certain conditions for this meeting to happen, at this place with these people under these circumstances, and these are maybe things David Grusch doesn't want to reply to, or has always said, I'm not going to do it this way. So if you want to, don't come to me offering something that I'm never going to do anyway, right? I mean, it's easy to offer someone. It's easy to offer, like, to talk if there are strings attached. That means no sane person would sort of have these conversations, right? So I think they're probably both right, but they would just miss part of the information.
No, that's probably the best nuanced response right there, Sebastian. To be honest with you, I'm like, there's something fishy going on.
What is it?
There's a conspiracy. No, you're probably exactly right, honestly. And it's probably something very innocuous, not even very clandestine in any way. Just like you said, was offered terms, to come in, and just was like, that's crazy. I'm not doing that. Like, and then Sean Kirkpatrick's like, hey, we offered him to come in, but you're right. We're not getting the details of what those terms were that he would come in and, speak. And yeah, so that's a fair point. They're probably both just telling the truth just from their version. Yeah.
Or they haven't offered him the protection that he needs, whatever. I mean,
it's a good point. Honestly, that's
things that you say can be used
point.
against you, stuff like, sure. I mean, in a way, I understand. I mean, he is so, AARO is what is from the Pentagon, right? AARO is the Pentagon department, and he is also in whistleblower proceedings against the Pentagon, right? Or some part of the military.
It's kind of a good point.
Right. I mean, why would you? It would be very weird under these circumstances to have conversations, right, without your lawyer there anyway, right? I mean, it would be weird, right? So.
No, those are all fair points. That's it. There's probably just so much. There's a lot of information that we just are not privy to. We don't have the details. So you just get these snippets in the news, right? Or different articles, David Grusch saying this, Sean Kirkpatrick saying this, but we don't get the full story behind it all. And, there is one story out there to David Grusch's defense of, so this is one of the stories that I heard of someone who had interviewed on, for AARO. And basically they were doing phone call interviews, right? So they were having these phone call interviews with people, revealing classified information over the phone, an unsecured phone line, and they were basically layering the people together. So you would be on the phone waiting for your turn to tell your story, right, to AARO, but then you would hear the guy's story before you on the phone, because you're on a group call, but your mic is muted, but you're hearing the story before. So it's like, well, what do you do? I mean, what kind of security is that? So this person was like, man, I'm here to tell them my story, and then I'm hearing the other guy's story, who's hearing mine?
Yeah.
You know,
Insane,
I'm thinking
isn't
I'm
it?
having a private phone call to tell my stuff, and then, you know, just a conference call, just an unsecured conference call. So yeah, maybe
Yeah.
David Grusch is just like, you know what? The way y'all are going to perform this interview is not going to be, I mean, you know what? I mean, there's kind of an indication he's saying we're not cleared, right? That's one of the quote unquote excuses
Yeah.
that was given. And maybe that's part of it. Like he's just saying, y'all, dude, y'all don't have this set up in the right way for me to give you this gold mine of information. So anyway, I mean, Sean Kirkpatrick's out. So, I mean, it's kind of a moot point, to be honest with you, right? Like at this point,
Yeah.
you know, they got a
But
new
it's all
person.
very strange, isn't it? I mean, so he gets this post like 1.5 years ago, right? And
Yeah.
now he's out. I heard him saying somewhere that I read somewhere that he said he has achieved everything he wanted to achieve. I mean, that's obviously bullshit, right? I mean, you're not
Correct. Yeah, he
hired.
said that.
Yeah.
You're not hired for these positions, you know, with a sort of view of like 1.5 or 2 years, right? I mean, you're expected to, you know, do it 5 years, 6 years, or whatever. I mean, if you look
Yeah.
at any government position, how long they are, they might not be like for 20 years, but no, let's say at least 5 to 10, right? So, I mean, clearly he was fired, I guess, right? So, and you know, for whatever reason, we probably never know, but I don't think it looks good on him, right? I mean, it looks like, you know, I've been fired from a job after 18 months because you were, I don't know, incapable, right?
Yeah, no, that's a
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
point. Here's the quote right here from the article. It says, I deferred my retirement because I was asked to come do this, meaning ARRO. So I
Yeah.
guess he was going to retire, you know, and they asked him to come in to do ARRO. He said, I set out
Oh,
those
yeah, that is,
goals. It's been about 18 months. I'm ready to move on. I have accomplished everything I said I was going to do. What? You mean prove aliens are flying around? That hasn't been
Yeah.
proven. Like, what are we, you know, I mean, I think the whole goal, yeah, I agree. It's very, I don't know. I mean, to be fair to, you know, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, it's a lot of pressure. Everyone is already looking at you side-eyed. If you're working for the government investigating UFOs, they're already looking at you like you're, you know, oh, this guy's going to lie to us. He's part of the cover up. He's part of the, you know, so he was already kind of like 1 foot out the door in some respects, you know, already, just because of the uphill battle to just fight the UFO community, not even investigating cases, you know, not even anything to do with the office, just the community itself and having to deal with that. So yeah. But it is weird. I mean, I don't know how you've accomplished everything you set out to do, but whatever. Anyway, yeah, there's a new guy in. Let's jump to that. I mean, that rolls in perfectly to the new next story here. So basically, the US Department of Defense, the DoD, has a press release here. They announced the new deputy director of the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, Timothy A. Phillips, has arrived on assignment from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. So he is a member of the Senior National Intelligence Service since 2006. Phillips brings to ARRO his extensive experience in geospatial intelligence collection and mission management. Geez, that's a mouthful. Expertise that is critical to enabling DoD and intelligence community components to successfully identify, characterize, and resolve unidentified anomalous phenomena. Why don't they just write it much more like layman term? Like, he's here to find out if aliens are flying above us, you know, just like a simple
it's done on
press
purpose,
release
though.
we can get all behind.
Yeah, it's done on purpose to confuse people.
I think so, right? It's just a lot of like, did they really say it? They used a lot of words, but did they say anything?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, and here's a picture of Timothy Phillips right here. And there's Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, outgoing director. Poor guy. That guy, I mean, I do feel bad for him in some ways. just because I can't imagine being in that position is easy, regardless.
Yeah.
So Timothy Phillips has a lot that he's stepping into, to be honest with you. Yeah. So look, what they said about Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, I thought was interesting too. So Kathleen Hicks, she's the Deputy Secretary of Defense. She made some comments about Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick out. Again, I'll put links to all these. I wouldn't call this an article per se, but more press release. So yeah, she said she cited his launch of the office's public-facing website as an example. Basically Kirkpatrick's commitment to transparency with the United States Congress and the American public on UAP. I mean, you know, I don't know. That's been the whole issue.
That website
is that, yeah, this website. And he, you know, in that political article, he talked about the website like there's just a lot of red tape to go through with the government to get a website put out for the government, which, to be fair, I honestly believe him on that.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like he's doing the coding for the website, you know. So I could see it taking a long time to get up. But, you know, anyway, so yeah, I've got a new guy, and I don't know what do y'all think? Like, you know, let's say y'all were taking this position, this new position, what sort of things would you do or look out for? Or what would be your goal? Or like, you know, I know that's a weird question to ask, but
I think they've got to reset the relationship, haven't they, with the public and with the sleuths.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, surely that's got to be priority number one. I don't have the answers to solve that, but if you're going to get anywhere, you need to have some backing and some trust in the public. I don't know.
I think that's it. I agree. I agree with that. Focus on that. Focus on the trust of the public. Yeah, I agree. Getting that somehow, whatever that is. I mean, do you think like that the US, like that the office should be asking the public, like, what do you want to see from this office? Or do you think the office should just be doing what they think they should do? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's always tricky when you ask people, you know, the public what they want, because is there going to be a consensus, or is it going to be, but I mean, why not? You know, they might get some good intel out of people. Yeah,
might get some good ideas. You might do one or two of the things that get suggested, and then people are like, yeah, we can get behind it. You don't do all of it, right? Because people are like, yeah, we'll bring out the UFOs and aliens. That would be a great start, ARRO.
Yeah, this is what we want.
Yeah, and ARRO's like, but we don't have that. What else can we do?
Yeah,
we can throw a party. We can have a cocktail hour to invite everybody. I think that's it. I think UAP, or, you know, transparency with the UAP public and figuring that out. I don't know. What do you think, Sebastian? What would you do in this office?
I think there's a lack of professionalism, generally speaking. I mean, I feel, right, and you can see that in the communication. Like, let's say, for example, the website they're doing, and so also in how some people, talk and some people communicate. Like, and I don't think Fitzpatrick was a very good Kirkpatrick wasn't a very good communicator, right? In a way, you can see it in this article there, right? So I mean, if you represent the government, right? I don't think usually you would just sit there and blame like a whistleblower or a former employee for everything that has gotten wrong, right? I mean, in any organization that would be seen as poor communication, even if it is true, right? Even if it would be true.
Good point. Yeah, it's a
you
good
wouldn't
point.
do that, because it just looks like very, it looks very spiteful and not very much in control, right? So I think that they have to somehow change, right? So he has to be a lot more, I'd say, confident and outgoing with all the stakeholders, And I mean, I think it's true. It's difficult, because there's the expectation of the public and the UFO and through the us is so big, right? That they will never be happy in a way, right? Because in a way they think the government is the dark side, right? It's the evil one, right? Because they think that. I mean, and that's just the way it is, right? And I mean, okay, fair enough, and you can't change that, right? So, but I think to be professional, I think. And I never had the impression that anything that Kirkpatrick did, and I'm, at least not in communication wise, was professionally done.
Yeah. No, yeah, great assessment. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. Well, we'll see what comes of the office now. It says Kirkpatrick will be out in the next month, so I'm sure. I don't know if there'll be much movement with ARRO and them doing things with the new guy. I don't know, how that's going to go. I guess we'll have to watch. I know Sean Kirkpatrick is doing a speaking engagement this week, a public one about UFOs. So, that's going to be live streamed. Definitely will cover that on Vetted this week. So that should be interesting what kind of questions he gets from the public. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's odd that you think the government is covering this up and you're asking the government to then uncover it.
Yeah.
And that's just, and I get it that the government isn't, monolithic. It's not this one, entity, especially the US government, but still it's quite an ask. So yeah, we'll see what ARRO does. All right. Next story, David Grusch. Okay, boom. Here it is. It's the ARRO network. Whistleblower David Grusch, more revelations. I think I have. Oh, this is what I wanted to talk about. So that's the interview right here. Again, I'll put links to all this so everyone can watch it. But something he said in the interview, that is interesting. So this is from Science Bob McGuire. Okay. And oh God, there's a backstory on this guy. He's got his own, UFO sighting that he's famous for, this guy, Science Bob McGuire, but he has worked with the government on private defense contracts, top secret stuff, classified, whatever projects, black projects, mainly dealing with submarines. And he's got a very famous story of an underwater submarine sighting that he had. It's one of the bigger ones. Anyway, so that's who this guy is for people that don't know. But he said that in this interview, so in this interview with ARRO Network, he mentions, I thought this was interesting. He says, David Grusch provided a major revelation in the ARRO Network interview. He said FFRDCs were involved in the reverse engineering. FFRDC is Federally Funded Research and Development Center. They are not-for-profit research centers limited to working for the USG, so the United States government. There aren't many of them. I worked for one for many years. Grant Cameron feels the president of IDA in the 60s was heavily involved in reverse engineering. So he's basically saying that, right, a federally funded research and development center helped with the reverse engineering of UFOs, and Science Bob McGuire saying, hey, there's only a few of those centers. We could maybe, basically insinuating the UFO sleuths might be able to find out which one of these is working. Does that make sense? Because you've narrowed the haystack down a lot smaller to find the needle, basically. And I thought that was quite interesting. So I don't know if people are going to start trying to figure this out, which one of these another acronym FFRDCs, was part of reverse engineering this stuff. So yeah, thought that was interesting. And he also mentions that he is going back to DC in the next week. And that he has a message for Dr. Kirkpatrick. That's what he says in this interview. Yeah. So we'll see, because there's another skiff meeting this week in Congress. And supposedly this meeting that's coming up this week on the 16th, David Grusch's evidence, if you want to call it that, his documents, the stuff he presented to the Inspector General, the conclusion to his investigation, that is supposed to be shown this week. So we'll see in that skiff meeting. But yeah, look, it's an interesting interview. It was all in Italian to begin with, this interview, and it took like a few days for them to release an English version where they weren't talking over David Grusch in Italian and you couldn't hear what he was saying. So yeah, I'll put a link to this interview and you guys can watch it. I'm going to make a video on Vetted for this entire interview. And yeah, he goes into more details about some of these craft, what they look like, bodies, how many we got, why they think they're alien bodies. Like it's a great interview. It's long. It's not that long. It's 21 minutes. Well worth watching. And yeah, there's bearded Grusch. He's just been holed up in his house waiting to blow the whistle. So I got a question for y'all. Why do you think he's doing like interviews like this on some random Italian YouTube channel? I don't know. Do you think there's a reason for that, or
how many views did the video get? 15,000. Okay, in the last 20 hours. Yeah,
that's on this one. So the Italian one has more, but not like an exorbitant amount. But like he did, the Country Highway interview, which Vetted, brought to the world, right? We brought that here to the world. We did that. And then then this one. So he's done the News Nation interview. He's done the stuff with Jesse Michaels, the Country Highway, this one. And he actually did this small French newspaper one in the summer. This very like small French newspaper, he did an interview in it. So I don't like, it's because he is getting offers to go, Washington Post, New York Times. I have heard that they have tried to interview him and he's just turning down all these interviews. So I don't know. Do you think this hurts his credibility to go on these sort of, do these sort of interviews like this? Because again, in these sort of interviews, he goes, if you want to use the word like sort of just more crazy revelations, right? He just expands upon a lot of the stuff that he said in his congressional testimony, but saying things that sound crazy. They sound not crazy bad, just like, holy cow, these are quite, serious allegations and details he's throwing out about this stuff. So I don't know. It just seems, I don't know. Is there anything to it, basically?
How many views did he get on this original post?
On the other one, I have no idea. I don't know on the other video, but not very much. I mean, they basically have the same amount of subscribers we do, this ICER network. I think it's like an Italian, Italian UFO group, right? I mean, it's a couple of it's a couple of, Paolo Ghisardi. I saw him on Twitter, right? He's got a Twitter account, and Roberto Pinotti. I mean, look at these guys. They look like they're with the mob. Like they're interviewing David Grusch. I don't know. It just seems. Yeah, right here.
I have no. Oh, I've got no.
It says Coon right here. So Centro Ufologico Nazionale. So it just means, right, the National Ufology Center.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That was my first thought. Like, do these oddball interviews hurt his credibility?
I think could be just like friends from or people he knew from the past,
who
he probably has no one that recommends just tell him what to do in terms of media presence, right?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Does he? Why wouldn't he though? Wouldn't somebody around him in his circle have like Lou Elizondo, right? He's got press people and PR
Mhm.
people and interview people that handle stuff for him. And, why wouldn't David Grusch have someone who's sort of, has anyone offered? Is it a money thing? Is it, maybe it's like you said, it's old friends and he's, getting favors called in. So he's like, yeah, I'll do your thing, I'll do
Yeah.
your show. Or maybe he's just kind of eclectic in that weird way of like, you know what, I'd rather do these smaller, weird interviews
Yeah.
than, it's kind of cooler. It's like the independent band, right? The unsigned band. Let me go see them.
Yeah. Maybe he
It's,
thinks it adds to his credibility and it's like underground people.
yeah, underground. Yeah, exactly. Maybe he thinks that's more credible, to be
Yeah.
honest. I don't know.
I don't know.
It just seems odd to me, but then again, is that what that's what we're used to, people going to, legacy media when they want to get something out, and that's the only way to do it. I mean, so yeah, all right, fair. I don't know. I just thought everyone's talking about the interview and what's in it, but I was more curious, why do this interview with these people right now? Just and some of the, and not because they're not asking some of the questions that a lot of the UFO community would want to know.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like the stuff with Sean Kirkpatrick. Hey, why haven't you gone to give the evidence? Hey, what's this about you can't afford a flight to get out to do the skiff meeting? What's this about this? What's this about that? What's going on? Your clearance, this, that, like questions we want to know about him, because it's time to get this out. I mean, enough's enough of, it's coming any moment. I've got the stuff right here. Somebody's seen it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Anyway, it is an interesting interview. I definitely recommend checking it out. It's just a lot of speculation, a lot of theorizing, but again, he does talk about some of the evidence that he has not spoken about before. And I'm just curious, why wouldn't he speak about it before, but now he is, if that makes sense. Like it's the same clearance of information that he has, that he's allowed to talk about. That hasn't changed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So he was sort of, given an outline. Okay, you can talk about this stuff. Well, that hasn't changed. So why didn't he testify to the stuff like that he says in this Italian interview?
Yeah.
Like if he's allowed to say that on an Italian podcast, why couldn't he testify to it in front of Congress? Because in front of Congress, he was like, oh, well, I can't really say that, or I can't answer that, or I got to tell you privately in a skiff, right? In a secured facility. But wait a second, you can go on this Italian podcast and talk about some of the stuff that you didn't bring up in the hearing. I don't get that. I don't know. I mean, am I missing something here? I'm so confused. I'm so confused by that. Why he's allowed to talk here and not
anywhere else. Yeah.
Maybe he just got maybe he got new information from his lawyers,
That's possible. Yeah.
Maybe the questions were out of agreed, in advance. So, you don't know that.
It's a great point. Wow, Sebastian, you're the the sound of reason on this podcast. Let me just say, that's what we need. We need that anchor to keep it, because I start to go off that. There's just something not right here, And I love Sebastian, like, oh, maybe they just
Have you thought about
lawyer
this?
didn't tell him the stuff. It's like, you know what? That's Occam's razor. You're probably right, Sebastian. It more than likely is just something so simple. You're right. Well, again, for people, definitely check this interview out. It's interesting for sure. Again, we'll put links to all of it. All right, let's jump to. I am gonna let me show this clip that I do want to show y'all. I have it queued up here, as we say. So again, this is on the Merge podcast. Ryan Graves, giant red square floating UFO. That was first brought up in the July hearings, by Ryan Graves. And this is the guy right here, Jeff. Oh gosh. Nuccitelli. I don't know how to, I think I'm saying that right. Nuccelli.
Yeah, sounds
Nuccitelli.
about right.
I don't know. I have to say it in Italian too. Nuccitelli. Jeff Nuccitelli. Okay. Yeah. So Vandenberg, Red Square witness, speaks for first time. Let's give it a listen here.
And some of the guys responded out there. They got statements. I'm like, oh my God, is this real? You know, and I'm getting more and more excited. So I get to the control center and I walk up and everybody's there just waiting to tell me. They're like, you're not going to believe what happened. I'm like, what happened? So the story is about 8:45 in the morning. The dispatcher gets a call from range control, a technical sergeant from range control. And he says, I'm reporting an event that occurred at LF21 and LF10, two different sites in the same location. And what he said was the contractors working on site called range control, and he said there was a gigantic floating red square over LF21 at low altitude. And they were just standing there watching this thing.
A red square. So
red square.
One thing that people have asked me after I spoke about this case at the hearing was, what does that mean, a red square? Right? Was this a cube? Did it not look like it had depth, and so it's described as a square? I said square in the hearing because that's how it was described to me, just as you described it. And I'm curious if you have any additional details that you could add. Was it a three-dimensional object? Did it just appear to be a square and it just couldn't be, you couldn't tell?
So here's the issue. I had the original statement from the contractors. There were three contractors that worked for Boeing that saw this object, and they wrote sworn written statements. I have lost those. I lost them in 2012. I have some other statements, but those are indirect witness statements from it. But from my recollection of reading the documents, to the best of my recollection, it was a somewhat flattened square plane, and basically just a big square object, the size of a football field, silently floating over the launch pad. Wow. Red in color, glowing this red color. So
that's there's a lot more to the story. They go into, a lot more different stuff on that and expand further. But that part was like, the most interesting and telling. So yeah, I don't know. What's your first just thoughts hearing that story?
A different description, isn't it, than what we're used to?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
That's a good point.
It's another former Air Force officer as well. Interesting.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that he lost the original statements.
Yeah.
Like, that's I don't know.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. That is
right.
crazy.
Like, wait a second, you lost the UFO state? Like, I don't know. Did they not seem important at the time? I don't know. This is going off his memory of those direct witness statements, right? That he lost, and he said 2012, so that's 11 years ago.
Is he asked about what happened to those statements?
No, not that I know. The rest of that in this interview that never Ryan Graves doesn't ask him about that. I agree. That would have been my follow-up question right then and there. Wait a second. What do you mean you lost these statements? Like, what happened? Could there not be other copies? What about the people? Can those three defense contractors come out and Boeing, right, and say it? Yeah. I actually, at first, it says Red Square witness speaks for the first time.
Yeah.
But he's talking about other people.
Yeah, a bit misleading.
Right. So yeah. He's not an actual witness to it.
Yeah.
To this object. So yeah, I don't know, but it is a huge red. I still couldn't even understand from this description that, like, was it three-dimensional? I still don't understand from what he's saying if it was or it wasn't, or
flat.
A football field. Yeah, I said flat. A football field, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's right. What
That's
do y'all
Red
call it?
Square.
A football pitch? A football pitch, right?
Yeah.
That's huge. That's massive.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we? How do you see that floating in the sky?
Yeah.
A
Yeah,
red.
it's insane, yeah.
That's insane. I don't see how you. I don't see how you make that up, and I just don't see how you see something. You like, misidentify
Yeah.
something in the sky. Like,
Yeah.
it was a bird the whole time. Wait a second. A bit, right? Like you can't. I don't. What are you confusing with a huge football pitch size craft that's floating in the air? There's nothing else to
Yeah.
confuse it with. So, like, you either really saw that or people are crazy and they're making this up. Like, and three people together, contractors even. So they're saying Boeing contractors, not they weren't in the military. So I don't know. Yeah, very, very interesting. I don't know. So anyway, again, I'll put a link to this so everyone can check out the full interview, Merch Podcast, Ryan Graves, Jeff Nucitelli tells his story. All right, last story, guys, is really these aliens here. Extraterrestrials. This is from the AP article. I made a video, did quite well on the Vetted channel, so please check it out where I cover the alien bodies. I don't know what to say. I'll put a link to it so you guys can look at it. But basically, yeah, extraterrestrials return to Mexico's Congress as journalists presses case for non-human beings. So there's some pictures here. Oh, we got a headless alien here that's seated perfectly, by the way. Look at that. Just like
Looks comfy.
Yeah, looks comfortable. Looks comfy. You got this thing. These bodies we saw before, because they presented some new bodies at this one. And they had a university that 13 people from the university signed a letter saying that these skeletons were non-human life forms. So they're not saying they're aliens or extraterrestrials. They're just saying they're non-human life forms.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, that was
What
really
does that
the gist of the 4-hour live stream, was that I was just like, holy cow. It was a lot to watch. But look, to be fair, I mean, they are putting out physical evidence and like showing stuff, and like they had they had a lot of documentation and evidence and, medical procedures and scientific data that they presented. So to be fair to them, they're doing what a lot of people are asking, which is show us something and try to prove it right. And they are. So I'll give them that. They are at least doing some, not just telling stories of red squares flying over, landing bases, and you lose the descriptions. And, all you got is your word and a story from 20 years ago. This is like, hey, we're saying there's some bodies from Peru. Here they are. And we're going to look at them. So, I mean, I'll give them that. At least they're willing to do that. But it has not been like reviewed outside of Mexico, essentially.
Yeah.
So no university or, other research center or whatever government entity has not verified any of this. Now there is plans in place to have that happen. So we'll see.
Yeah. It's interesting to watch.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's a 4-hour live stream. There's a lot to it. I don't know how much you can, learn from it. So right here, it says, on Tuesday, Dr. Daniel Mendoza showed photographs and x-rays of what he said was a non-human being. Maussan said it was a new species as it did not have lungs or ribs.
Oh my God.
So, yowzers.
Yeah.
Again,
Wow.
they're not saying ET or aliens, they're just saying non-human. Not part right here. Non-human beings that are not part of our terrestrial evolution.
Good Lord.
People are saying Mexico is going to be the first country to officially declare, life outside the universe life outside this planet has visited us.
Really?
That's supposedly what, that's the word on the street. If you think about it, every country has their own line in the sand and what they can declare, right? So some country might be like, yep, there's life outside of Earth, and they've come and visited us, and we've got, that's what we're declaring in our country, and other countries are going to be like, well, we don't know about that. We haven't seen, that's going to be interesting. Like, well, as we progress, right? Like, you have some countries that are in on it and think, and have declared it, and others that are like, no, we're not sold on it yet. That will be odd. That will be such an odd thing to have happen.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's either
that whole story is very weird.
Yeah, this story is but again, they got actual bodies and they're trying to show them, so
yeah,
I'll give them that. So anyway, guys, that's all I got for this week.
Great.
Great, Patrick.
Amazing.